You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. We have another dynamic guest, but first, this episode is brought to you by CallRail. How many high-value cases did you lose in the past year because your firm couldn't respond fast enough? 81% of law firms say slow response times cost them business, sometimes nearly a quarter of their annual revenue. That's why you need CallRail in 2026. Integrated into your case management system, CallRail is going to help you capture every call, even after hours, spot high-value leads instantly, respond faster, and get the insights you need to bring in bigger cases. Join over 3,000 firms in using CallRail to follow them faster, land bigger cases, and to drive growth for your firm. Start your free trial at callrail.com/lawyer-stories. All right. Thank you, CallRail. And let's get into today's episode. I'm excited to welcome Danielle Garno, a Miami-based fashion, beauty, and luxury goods attorney, general counsel, entrepreneur, and adjunct professor of fashion law at the University of Miami Law. Does it get any cooler than that? Fashion law at Miami Law. So I have a little more to say about Danielle. Transactional and litigation attorney who represents fashion and luxury brands ranging from startups to global companies, advising on intellectual property, social media and digital assets, advertising and marketing, regulatory compliance, and complex business disputes. Danielle, welcome to the show. That's amazing.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks so much for having me. This is exciting. I'm glad we can make this happen.
Me too. Thank you for making this happen. You're kind of an icon in the world here. And, we finally connected this past summer in New York. It was really cool to meet you. I'm like, oh, Danielle looks familiar. I think I know her from like LinkedIn. And there you were. But I do have a fashion question for you first, since you are like the guru of fashion.
Bring it.
Okay. So, and I'm not trying to, this isn't like a Miami football thing or anything, because I know we're on the heels of the loss, but how classic are these hats right here?
Oh, I love that.
How, is that like fashionable, would you say?
I mean, no, but there's,
Okay.
there's
Here's
nothing.
another one, like vintage,
Yeah.
right?
I have that one. Yeah.
Do you?
So,
Got the little thing in the back. All right. So I got to admit, I'm more of a Knoll because my father got his PhD from Florida State, like way back in the day. When I was 5, I lived in Tallahassee for a year, but yeah, but I've had those kicking around for a while. So anyway, I just wanted to present those to you today. I thought it was necessary.
Definitely wear them down here, but are they fashionable? No. I mean,
But people, I mean, come on, the vintage though? No?
the vintage is, look, the vintage is cool. The vintage is absolutely cool. People will love it. I'm a fan.
Okay, cool. All right. So
Don't wear it in Tallahassee, though. You'll get beer bottles thrown at you.
no, I would not do that. I have plenty of Florida State hats, honestly. So tell me, let's start from the beginning. Where are you from?
Originally, I am from South Jersey, so I am, a diehard Philly fan.
Really?
Moved down to, and I left my accent back there.
Okay.
Moved down to Miami for undergrad, went to the U. Then graduated a long time ago, moved out to Los Angeles, went to Pepperdine Law School, and never thought I was coming back. And so I practiced out in Los Angeles for 7 years, and then met my husband, who was a practicing lawyer in Miami. I decided it was really not nice to make him sit for the California bar. I had already taken the Florida bar, so it was just an easy transition back to Miami, and I've been here since late 2007.
Do you feel like there's a connection between Pepperdine and Miami, like the schools, like the sort of like the caliber of people, like the type of people, like the fashion or anything? I don't know like what I'm trying to draw, but I feel like Pepperdine looks like a cool place out in like, it's in like Malibu, right?
Malibu.
And then you're going to like Miami. Like, how is that?
I say that I'm solar powered, so like I just need to chase the sun.
Okay.
I think that what the parallels, look, Malibu's spectacularly beautiful. University of Miami campus is beautiful. Miami's beautiful. It attracts, I think, beautiful people, and people, and look, LA, Malibu, that whole centers around all things entertainment, right? Got a fabulous entertainment program. University of Miami, ours, our entertainment arts and sports law program where I teach is just phenomenal. So,
right.
I think that Miami, we are really, sports driven, particularly now. It is a great time to be in sports in Miami. Like we just came off, national championship. Yeah, lost, but I don't think anybody can argue that, the two best teams were out there playing. You gotta love Mendoza though. Like what a sweet
guy,
kid.
right?
Like, such a sweet kid.
Such a good role model. I love that kind of.
Yeah. But we've got FIFA moved their entire like legal and compliance here. We've got F1 is here now. I mean, we are, obviously the Heat and the Dolphins and Marlins, but it's a really, really great time to be in sports in Miami.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what originally drew you, first of all, to law school and then like to law, and like, did you always envision working like in the industry you're in?
So, interesting. So no, I never really wanted to be, nobody in my family is lawyers. They're all doctors. It was, I went to the U. I was an English major. I minored in like sports management, physiology, and kinesiology. And I remember, I was like, all right, what am I going to do with an English degree? And my boyfriend at the time was in law school, and I was looking at all of his idiot friends, and I was like, all right, well, if these jackasses can do it,
What drunk asses? Oh.
I was like, if these idiots can do it. So well, that seems great. I can do that. It's funny because then 20 years later, I married one of those idiots.
Nice.
Yeah. So which is also a funny story. But anyway, so that was like, all right, well, that was, I never really wanted to be a lawyer. I was like, all right, I'll just go to law school, and, did that. But while I was in Pepperdine in LA, I was like, oh, I really want to be in the entertainment industry. So like I did an externship at Warner Brothers, which was super cool. And like back in the day when Extra was a thing, like I worked on that set. Okay. And so it was like being in that life, in that environment, I thought was really, really cool. I also wanted to be a sports agent. And that was really my goal. And I just remember talking to a very, very big baseball agent at the time. And he's like, yeah, there's like, I would steal all of your clients. And he sort of just kind of said, don't go that route.
What do you mean by that?
There were no female agents at the time.
Was he like being sarcastic? Like, what do you think he meant? Like, what do you mean by that?
I think he was like, there was really there were no female agents at that time. So none. There are now. And I think that he was like, don't pursue that path because it won't be successful for you.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And it's funny, now where it took me a long time to sort of like back myself into that industry. My career path is very, very winding. But looking back at it now, it was just like, if I would have told myself then, don't listen to that guy. I think I should have gone for it, but.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty crazy of him to say that, but,
he said it something a little bit more crassly too, by the way.
He said it a little more crassly. Okay. Well, we know you're into tennis. You're a good tennis player, a great I don't know, but, not so much into pickleball, but we've talked about that. But so like, what are your sports? Like, what would you have been an agent of?
So now I was like, I would love to be, look, if I was 20 years younger, I would definitely go for tennis,
okay.
And be a tennis agent. I think that would have been the right call. Back then, it was, football. Coming from the U,
Sure.
I had worked in a sports division for an agency back in college, and that was cool. We represented some boxers, we represented some football players, you know, so it was that I thought was really, really cool. So I always really wanted to somehow be in the sports arena.
Okay. But how did you like sort of shift over to fashion? How does that happen?
So that happened
Luxury.
because so when I was a baby lawyer, I was a part of this intellectual property litigation team that would go out on anti-counterfeiting raids. And back in the day, it was like, you know, online counterfeiting was sort of just becoming a thing. I'm that old. But so we would go on these raids and we would go into businesses and go into homes and we would, you know, take their stuff and freeze their bank accounts. And we would go in with law enforcement and synchronize our watches. And it was super cool, right? And I love that. I didn't have to wear a suit. I could, you know, and it was really like you were really, you know, doing something big with all these like amazing luxury brands. So we were representing like Richemont and the North Face and Diane von Furstenberg and Chloe. And it was really, really cool. And I love that. And, you know, I moved to Miami and we weren't doing any of that in the Miami office. It was a lot of like LA and New York work. Miami just doesn't really have the, you know, we don't really
Okay. I see what you're
counterfeit
saying.
goods as much as, you know, other ports. So when I got here, I was doing other things. I was doing like condo litigation and white collar, which
Okay.
I love white collar work, and investigations. I still do. I'm obsessed with it. I do love it. But it was at a point in my career where I was like, all right, how am I going to stand out from everybody else? I work with, you know, incredible group of very, very talented, high caliber lawyers that do exactly what I do, which is general commercial litigation. Right.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, well, maybe I could go back to my roots. And, you know, it was just about the time where Susan Scafidi had started the fashion law boot camp and her class up at Fordham. And she was really like the first mover in this space. And I was like, that's really cool. So I took her boot camp and it was really interesting. I learned a lot. One of the speakers was actually somebody that I had worked with in the anti-counterfeiting space. He was now global IP counsel for Apple. It's funny because when you grow up with these people now they have these like amazing jobs, you're like, oh, that's so impressive.
It's like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, no, I was like, so you know, it was doing that. And so I was like, all right, this is what I wanted. This is what I want to do. And so I came up with a business plan and I went to management. And meanwhile, I'm at, you know, a 2,400, you know, lawyer, big law firm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, go to like the guy that runs the firm. And I'm like, I have this great idea. And he sort of was like, that's cute. All right, let's see what you can do with it. Right. I mean, and I will tell you, like the two men that ran the firm at the time, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, you know, as leaders and as visionaries, were unbelievably supportive of doing this.
Okay.
I think they saw it was, you know, it's okay. It's like, it's, you know, $1 trillion industry, you know, if you get that expertise and knowledge about the business, you know, go do it. And I would seek their guidance out because it's very frustrating, right? Because I'm starting a new practice that really isn't recognized and everyone's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what is that? And I don't really fit into a box.
Right.
And so I would get frustrated. I'm like, you know, it's not coming. Like the business isn't coming. You know, I'm doing all these things. I'm going out. I'm doing all the things. The network, speaking, the writing, all the things that we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, be patient. You're just planting the seeds, and at some point, you're going to get that hockey stick growth in your practice.
Right.
I'm not a patient person. We are type A lawyer. Like we're not patient.
Yeah. Well.
He was absolutely right. I mean, that is absolutely what happened, which was I became the subject matter expert who was out there talking about the industry. I came online with this when influencer marketing just became a thing.
Wow.
And so I was out there talking about, nobody knew what it was because like the Kardashians are out there, like, you know, promoting fit tea and everybody thinks that they're actually like, they actually love it. Right. And so, you know, but what, you know, the FTC guidelines, how does that apply? How does regulation step in here? What is really happening here? And so I was the first one, like, well, I won't say the first one, but I was really out there early on talking about it.
That's amazing. So what would your talks be like? What would you focus on the most?
The FTC regulation. So I remember being on a panel, Glossy, I think it was a Glossy event in New York with creative director of, I can't remember whatever brand. And I'm on a panel with him and I'm like, this is, I mean, really cool stuff, right? I'm in there with like, the business people and we're talking not lawyer heavy, right? In fact, I think I might have been the only lawyer, which is hot tip. That's exactly where you want to be.
Right. Right.
And, I remember him saying, we don't like hashtag ad because it's not sexy. And I'm like, well, yeah, it might not be sexy, but neither is an enforcement action by a regulatory, body. Your shareholders hate that.
Wow.
So, it was kind of.
That's great. Yeah. And that's just, I don't think a lot of people even, I mean, maybe they don't use that. Maybe they do. Hashtag ad. That's interesting. I remember here we're hashtag sponsor or something like that, right?
Hashtag sponsored. Yeah. I mean, SponCon was, going for a while and the FTC said, well, you can't use that. And then because to them, all of that stuff was not obvious, right? They said, okay, it's not obvious to the normal consumer that they would know that it's in fact sponsored content. So you have to be very clear and conspicuous about how you make your disclosures that it is in fact content that was either bought or paid for or given a gift or whatever, that there's some material connection between the brand and the influencer.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So what did you feel like?
Fun stuff.
No, it is. Like, do you feel like Pepperdine sort of led you on that way? Like, I don't know why, but like, I have this idea of like Pepperdine being like this like fancy like Malibu place, and like maybe there was a connection between like getting into what you got into and like Pepperdine. Were there connections back and forth or no?
No, I will say. I mean, look, Pepperdine is beautiful. It's a very beautiful campus. It is deeply, deeply religious.
Okay.
And so, like, I remember driving up to the campus. They've got this, and I'm Jewish, and so they've got this big cross on the lawn.
Right. Yeah.
And my mom just starts to cry, and I'm like,
no.
it's okay, it's fine. I'm not going to convert. We'll be fine. But it does. I mean, it is deep. Like, the undergrad, they can't drink. They have to go to services. They can't drink on campus. It's like church. I believe it's Church of Christ, which is Footloose, the religion in Footloose with the
Footloose, great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie. Footloose was a great movie. You saw it?
It is. It's a great movie.
Let them dance, Danielle.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. That's why I said, I'm like, are we allowed to dance here? Like,
let them dance. Like, I thought. So it didn't need to be remade. Kevin Bacon's the man. Like,
exactly.
I go out to 80s night and I have like a Footloose to you. Anyway. So I'm going to talk about big law for a minute, like, sure. Because I think what's super interesting is like you went into big law and you worked at a few different big laws, and it was sort of quick. Like it was like a year here, a year there, or whatnot. And I think that's sort of, I don't know. I just want to know a little bit about that.
So it was 15 years it was Greenberg Traurig for 15 years.
Yep.
And starting in their Los Angeles office and then transferring to Miami. I could say that I was really born and raised there and very well trained. Like, okay. Really, 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 really well trained. I worked, I think, with some of the best trial lawyers I've ever seen. But I got to a point where when you're at a place so long, I still think that you're sometimes viewed as like an associate. And it wasn't like I felt that it was like I was being treated like, but I felt like, okay, I'm ready for the next move, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And what does that look like? And so when I left GT, when I told them I was leaving, the same man when I gave them business plan to, and when I told him I was leaving, I sat and cried in his office for 2 hours, and he was like, "You really have to leave now." I'm like,
yeah, I'm billing this. I'm billing you for this, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I'm like, oh my, just get out of my office. But that's how it felt. It felt like I was leaving, a family. Like it was these, for the good and the bad, the dysfunctional. It felt like a family.
Was that your first job? Was that your first?
It wasn't my first job. It was like my first real job. Like okay. I had worked in an insurance defense firm for a year. Right out of law school, which was whatever. And then I went to I was at a small employment law firm in LA where I actually like tried my first case, right? So like that was really baptism by, it was just like, here's some cases, like see what you can do it. We were both on plaintiffs and the defense side, which I thought was really interesting. And I really got some great experience. And from that experience, I was able to my background doesn't scream big law. Like I didn't go to a T14, law school or, go right into big law. Like I, was at a very, very small firm.
How do you think you made that transition, Danielle, from like the small, like insurance defense to go into Greenberg?
How do I make the transit? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was like, I guess I interviewed really well.
Okay.
And I knew what I was talking about. And I mean, look, I did my homework and I knew all the things, and I know with hiring me and all of her the cases that she had done, like I did my research. So I knew, and then when I got there, I had, major imposter syndrome for 15 years.
Oh my goodness. 15 years, really?
No, but I mean, it's just like, it's more common than I think, but I didn't even know what it was at the time. But I was just like, oh my God, how did I get here? Like I'm such a fraud.
Didn't somebody just name imposter syndrome like 2 or 3 years ago? Like there's like all of a sudden a name for what it actually is. I feel like maybe.
Well, that's what it was. So I was sitting down in, and I was in Miami, and I may have been like a junior shareholder at the time, but I was sitting in my partner Lacey's office, and we're describing that. She said those, she's like, that's, it's imposter syndrome. And I'm like, what do you, like, there's a word, like, this is a thing, like, how, there's a name for it. Like, it was just, and I'm like, I'm not the only one that's feeling this way.
But that's good.
It's amazing. It was amazing. It was so enlightening. Then I couldn't shut up talking about it. I'm like, there's this thing, and it's, and people go through it, and I'm researching it, and, it is what it is. And there was an interesting, do you know who Scott Galloway is?
Galloway.
He's a professor at NYU. Speaks. He's out on the speaking circuit. Very, 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 very smart. And he was talking about imposter syndrome. It's got multiple podcasts.
I might have seen him on social.
One with Jessica Tarlow. And I don't remember in what context, but I was listening to it. But he was talking about imposter syndrome, and he's like, if you have imposter syndrome, it means that you are in the right spot. It means that you are in the right room. Okay. And because if you are in room, with people that are like, that you got there, and it's really like, sit and listen and learn. And that's exactly right. Well, like when I got to GT, I was like, oh my God, all these people are like, Harvard, Stanford, whatever, really smart, accomplished people. What can I learn from them? And I didn't, and I was like a sponge. I wanted to learn like everything. And so, when I go into these rooms or these boardrooms or these places or spaces where I'm like intimidated or have like, I don't know how, like, I'm like, why, how, it means I'm doing something right and I'm in the right, the right.
How long, when did you learn that though? Did you learn that along the way, like at GT? Because that's some pretty, I love that actually. And I think I might know what you're talking about. I've seen some reels from some guy. I have a picture in my head. I'm not sure if it's his name, but that's incredible. Like, when did you like kind of have that, like not the imposter syndrome, but like when did you kind of figure out that way to handle it?
With some seniority, I think. With a lot of the stuff, it just comes with age and experience. Sort of like you at some point, particularly for women, you cross this line where you're like, I just don't give a fuck anymore. Like, sorry, you can bleep that out, but it's like, I don't, it just, none of this matters. And you have some confidence and you're like, okay, and I deserve to be there, but it comes with, I think, the age and the experience.
So I think that's really important advice, actually. So can you actually like just say that again, like in case, I want to hear, and I think that's like a great perspective on imposter syndrome, because I think a lot of people deal with it. There's certain times when I deal with it. I have an event coming up, like I'm starting to deal with it. And I'm okay with like admitting it, because I'm all about like authenticity and being genuine on this show. So like, tell us, Danielle, like give us advice for like an attorney who's in a space where they might feel like they're over their head in something, like, and they might be feeling imposter syndrome.
No, because you are feeling that way, it means that you are in the right space, because you are now invited into that room, or you are part of this journey or whatever is happening because of you. And, take it as an opportunity to learn from these people who you believe are, have some wisdom to impart, do things a certain way. I think you should look at it as like, it's an honor to be there.
Yeah.
And, you don't have anything to prove. Like, you don't have to go in there and, say things just for the sake of saying things. I think, in those situations, like a boardroom, for example, it was like I was on a board call with some really, really, really impressive people. And I just sat there and I didn't need to say a word, but I was just listening to, how people view things. What are they saying? How are they communicating? You can learn. I think everybody's got something to offer, and you can learn so much. So I think it's you deserve to be there, and there's a learning opportunity for you once you're there.
I think that's an awesome message. And honestly, I wish I had heard something like that when I was in law school, which was a long time ago. And I wish I had sort of like, I was a little more focused and had heard that. So thank you for sharing that. So you were like, there were 3 other big laws after that. And I think
there were 3.
I know.
Yeah,
I know you were 15 years at GT, and then you can name the other place if you want to, but I think there were kind of stints, right? Like, or were you like of Counsel, or were you in there and you were like, I'm out of here? Like,
no. So it was, when I left GT, so I went in as leaving somewhere with a book of business is a pain in the ass.
Okay.
It is not something that it's just like you ask a lot of your clients, you ask a lot of it's a lot of paperwork, and it is drinking from a fire hose at all times.
Yeah.
So I left GT and went to another firm to head up their retail and fashion, basically to start it. And by the way, this was February of 2020.
Okay.
So what came in March of 2020?
Yeah, COVID, right?
COVID.
Yeah.
COVID came, and COVID really decimated my entire sector. So it was a interesting time and a terrible time to leave a family that you love for so much. It just wasn't the right fit for me, and I left, and
Sure.
I went to another firm, and was interestingly in their entertainment department, and it was awesome. Like, loved it. I really did. Like, it was very, very cool.
So did you leave GT before COVID hit?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Right,
All right. So go
right
on.
before COVID hit.
So you're at the 3rd big law.
No, second big law.
Okay. So the 2nd big law, you were in the entertainment department.
Oh, third big law,
Sure.
now in
Yeah.
entertainment.
Okay.
Yeah. In their entertainment department,
Yep.
which I think was a really, really good fit. I met, I will say, like, some just incredible female lawyers at this firm, who are still like really dear friends, even though I only stayed there 9 months. And it wasn't because it was because the 4th firm just made it impossible for me to say no.
So did they approach you? Were they like, hey, look at you, you have 3 of these on your belt, like, come to us. We have the best snack cart. Like, if you're here past 6, like, we have the best snack cart that you can like have a dinner. I always wonder about the snack cart, like the big.
Yeah, they just made it impossible for me to.
Okay.
It was a little bit like The Godfather, but it was
Really?
Okay. But and it was like people that I had worked with at GT that were already there, and so it made sense to me, and it was like, that was even harder because I had only been at the other firm for a short period of time, and I really liked it. but it is what it is.
So
But
like,
anyway.
when did you like realize that like big law was not going to be like the final destination for you? You have obviously like have seen it at different places and you're like, this is cool. Like, all right, I'm learning this. I'm in entertainment. And like you got the offer that it kind of progressively went, right? Like you got the job, you're having a little like imposter syndrome at the first one. The second one, not a good fit. I think like we all have a job like that. Maybe I did too. Second, third, you're like, this is great. Like I met some friends and then like you get an offer you can't refuse. So like the progression is like super interesting, but you're still like, okay, like I don't think this is like the end all type of thing, right? Like, so how did you know that?
I think it was, well, things changed in my, again, when you get to this senior, lawyer-ish, and my kids are older.
Yep.
And my nanny moved. She wanted to have her own life, and I was blessed to have her for 10 years, and she was the glue that held everything together and my life together in particular. And when she left, I tried to hire somebody else. It was a complete failure, and it was like, what, do I really need to do this? We're coming, remote work is a thing. And, it was great. And then all the big law firms were like, you have to be in the office. And that didn't work for me. Like, so that it was when the structure didn't work for me anymore. And I had always said that. So there was a woman who I grew up with at GT, and she and I would always say like, all right, we'll do this for as long as it works for us.
Right. I love it.
Yeah. And it got to the point for me where I was like, and she's, head of litigation, like she's killing it. Like she's amazing. She's just amazing. And it works for her. And I think it's fantastic. And she's made it work for her. And they're lucky to have, they're really lucky to have her, and they've made concessions for her because they realize the value in where she was. For me, it was like, I can't come to I can't do this anymore. Like, I have to pick up the kids. I have to do the things and I can still run my practice and do that. Like, but I can't do it if you make me come to the office. Right. And so it's like everything was changing. AI was coming into play. Like everything just changed. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this way anymore. There were opportunities for me, to just do other things that I find interesting. I've always been like, a little bit entrepreneurial in space and in the law. And I was like, I want to do other things and, make money doing, different things. And you can't do that when you're at a big law firm. You are really stuck in that box. And it worked for me for 20 years. And
what were you mostly practicing at the big law firms? It sounds like you had entertainment at one of them. And then like, what was it mostly?
So I really do. Like you said, I'm a hybrid litigation transactional lawyer in the fashion space, but I really, work with brands. So I would say I'm really like a branding lawyer, and whether that is protecting the brand through intellectual property, enforcement, or expanding the brand with different collabs or business ventures or celebrity talent endorsement agreements or working with influencers. And then I come at it from I think I come at it from a very holistic standpoint as for, do no harm to the brand. So I come at it with it also like a PR angle. And that kind of comes from a lot of like the white collar work that I've done, which is, and crisis comms and working with that when you have, sometimes, even though you've got a great legal case, it might not be the best for your client.
This is one of the best curated events in the legal industry, run by Morgan & Morgan, some of the greatest speakers, literally opening the blueprint, telling you exactly how they've become the largest law firm in the country.
If you want to make moves, if you want to meet the best of the best, they're here at RefCon.
I think I took away probably about 10 nuggets that I'm going to bring back into my personal injury practice.
It's been very informative. I've already learned a couple of really good tricks and techniques.
The information that they shared was very insightful. I'm really excited about what Matt was talking about for future strategic initiatives that they have. I'm excited to see what they do.
Morgan always puts on the best events, top notch. We learned
learned so much from their team, so many real action items that we can put into place.
Matt Morgan was the keynote. He was probably the best speaker and gave us really good business advice about our law firm.
This is my second RevCon that I've attended, and it just keeps getting better and better.
RevCon, the recovery revolution, will take place in New York City on September 29th. Visit Morgan and Morgan at forthepeople.com.
So like the last question about Big Law, like what do you think younger attorneys like misunderstand about the whole making it in Big Law, getting in there? Like, is there like a misunderstanding that people have, or is it like a shiny cover that people want to go to and then maybe it doesn't kind of work with for everybody?
It definitely doesn't work for everybody. It is, you know, it doesn't. It isn't. It's not bad. Like, it's not a bad place, right? You know, I think Big Law gets a bad rap. You know, some of it's deserved, but I do think that, you know, there are really good people. There are really smart people. You can find your people. The best thing about Big Law is like, you've got thousands of people to find your people, right? It's harder in a small environment where you're sort of like, okay, I'm interacting with these people like day in and day out. And if it's not, you know, sustainable, it can be very, very toxic, right?
Right.
At least Big Law. And for me, and I had done that within Big Law, I'd switched practice groups. Like, you know, that was another thing. I got drunk at a happy hour and I asked the guy, I'm like, can you just move me to commercial litigation? He's like, yeah, okay.
Nice.
So, you know, it was, you know, and I did white collar work and I got to work on things. I got to seek out things that I found interesting because of this Big Law firm. So, you know, for kids that are law students, young lawyers that are in that setting, you know, you don't necessarily have to be boxed in. And, you know, if you're like my associate was a corporate, or she was in bankruptcy or she was a bankruptcy clerk. She came in as corporate and she was like, I hate it. And I was like, okay, come work for me. And we switched her, you know, to litigation, and she was my associate for, you know, she'd litigation experience, but you know, you're not stuck in a box. So I think in that Big Law setting, you could get, you know, do other things and try other things and have more opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. So fashion law sounds glamorous. You know, I think there's a lot of like, I've met people and there's people who want to get into the industry, but the legal issues are difficult. So like, tell us about like the most common legal mistakes you see that emerging brands are making early on.
Early on is the internet. Things that are on the internet are not free. So I see a lot of, and it's better now, but every time I see one of these cases, I'm like, the PSA has not gone out again, which is, you know, look, it is amazing for a young designer or any designer to get their, you know, clothes on a celebrity and photographed. And that's, you know, they work with stylists and PR firms for that purpose. But the images, they don't own the images. So for example, if you've got, you know, Bella Hadid wearing your stuff and she gets, you know, photographed and by paparazzi, you cannot use that on your Instagram to promote that because you are infringing on that photographer or whoever owns the copyright of that photograph. And so, and you're also violating the rights of publicity, but that's I think a lesser risk. But those paparazzi firms will come after you and try to extort you, and you really don't have a defense.
Really? So how do you feel like social media and like influencer marketing and digital assets change the risk landscape for fashion and luxury brands? Sort of like you just mentioned a little bit, but.
Yeah, I think digital assets, for example, like I think that whole thing with NFTs and crypto and brands falling into that and has been nothing but litigation and terrible.
Yeah.
So I don't even, I don't even touch it. I don't mess with it. I did my share of NFT deals, and I don't like it's just.
Really? Like what happened? I mean, it was so popular for like a year. It was like this, and then I feel like it was like that. Like people were like buying property that you like couldn't even see, right? Like on the internet.
Yeah.
And people were like creating like faces and stuff like to go and like the other in the interworld? Like, what even happened? Like, I tried Googling that once, and it's like, it seemed like they were trying to like make it such a big thing, and now it's kind of like obsolete.
Yeah, Web3. I mean, so look, the digital art and digital assets in that regard is still very much alive and well and very popular and super cool. We saw it at Art Basel had an amazing section set aside for digital artists, and I spent an enormous amount of time. I found somebody who was unbelievably knowledgeable. He was like one of the first people that bought like a CryptoPunk, which was like one of those first digital like faces, you know, and made a killing. And he, for hours, like walked me through and introduced me to artists and people and the money lenders and the platforms that were hosting it and how the money like it was unbelievable how much I didn't know and learned in that time. So that side of it is good. But I think for like, you know, the crypto and coming up with like meme coins and, you know, building a brand around that where, you know, the money is just like, it's either a rug pull or it's just gone. That's where I think you see a lot of litigation. So even now, you know, some of the fallout from the FTX and the celebrities and everybody was like touting, you know, all of those crypto companies are still in litigation.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty wild. So when a startup fashion brand comes to you, like, what's the first conversation like? First of all, tell us who's coming to you for legal guidance and advice, and like, how does the conversation go?
So, all right. So, for example, a designer has a concept of an idea, and I want to start. And this is if they're lucky, right? So, usually I'll get it at some point where they've already spent a ton of money on the name, and they've got the website and the social media accounts, and they've put all this money into, you know, the branding and the hang tags, and they have not done a trademark search on whether or not, you know, it's a good idea or they have the rights to use this brand name. So, you know, the first step is really one, forming some sort of corporate entity to run all this through. And two is, okay, what is, you know, what's going to be your trademark? What's going to be your brand name? And are you able to secure those rights? Does somebody, you know, in the US, unlike most other jurisdictions, we are a first in use jurisdiction, which means that you don't need a federally registered trademark. That doesn't start the clock. So when you're, you know, there could be somebody in Iowa, you know, that's had a brand with the name that you really want to use, and they've been selling for, you know, 20 years. You know, you're going to have a problem. So may or you may not. Look, everything's negotiable. There's all sorts of ways, you know, that you can deal with it, but you should know what's out there.
If there's somebody like out in Iowa, right, like doing something kind of different, would you advise your client to like notify them of like what they're like, hey, I'm doing this, even though you're out in Iowa, like I'm in Miami doing like cooler things than you, but I'm just going to use this name anyway. Like, how would that?
It depends, right? It depends, like, and what, you know this better than anybody. Like, our job is really to evaluate risk.
Yeah.
And to see, okay, what's the, you know, is it the same exact name? Are they in the same exact space? Is it like, is there a high risk that this person, like, are they, you know, you look to see if they've sued a bunch of people before. Like,
right. Okay.
So you do that sort of research to see, okay, is that person in Iowa really going to be a risk to your brand? Look, we're never going to say that there's no risk, right? But you as a business owner then have to go ahead and evaluate that risk, and you know, we discuss it, and it's really up to the client as to whether or not, you know, I've told my clients, like, absolutely, you're going to get sued, like 100% you're going to get.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And you know, like, we don't care. Well, what happens if we get sued? I'm like, yeah, I mean, so, or it's,
let me just get that right in that you don't, you're going to get sued. You know, it's like,
I was like, yeah, great. Tell me when they notice you for deposition. But it's, you know, or is the worst thing that can happen, you get a cease and desist, and then you just take it down, and, you know, you haven't spent a whole lot of money. You know, there's a lot of like guerrilla tactics that work to get attention, and then you sort of like dip in and dip out. You know, it's a risky proposition, but, you know, the other thing as lawyers is we have to understand what our client's risk tolerance is, right? So, you know, after you've been working with them for a long time, you sort of like, you know, and if you get in the creative process, you're like, okay, you know, that could get you sued, but it could get you a whole lot of press too. So, you know, you balance. I mean, look, you know, the brand Mischief.
I don't know. Maybe if I
Right.
saw something like I would.
You ever see those? Well, they start with the Vans wavy baby sneakers. They did the big red, those big red boots.
Yep.
They are the most irreverent brand out there. They don't actually call themselves a brand; they're like an art collective. They've gotten themselves sued a gazillion times, and they are the coolest thing going. And brands, look, I mean, I represent brand, but like they hate them. And so, you know, but like I adore their GC, I adore their whole ethos. You know, this is a risk that they're willing to take. They do really cool stuff. That's who they are.
So what do they do though if they're getting sued all the time? You know, they like respond. They have to pay and respond to that.
Yeah. Yeah, they've lost, they've lost, and they've resolved, or they've settled, or they've, you know, it's, you know, or they've done some things where, you know, the brands have sort of like, this is kind of cool. We get the joke. Like they started actually controlling the message because they became so cool because they were irreverent. So it went from like phase one where they were like, you know, getting sued, and then they became really super cool. And so the brands are like, all right, we want to partner with you and like capitalize on this. And can we do a collab? And so it really went from like, you know, it built this whole business. It's super.
And they probably did it too to get like attention, right? In some respects, like get positive? Yeah. Okay. That's okay.
Oh yeah.
That makes sense. So, how does like
the little Nas X, like like the blood shoe, like the little Nas X where they sold 666 bed, they sold out in like 2 seconds. Like, I mean, you know, they are content creators, they are buzz makers, they are culture, you know, they are taste makers. That's who they are. It's pretty fun to watch.
Wow. So you work with both startups and like global luxury brands. Like how do the approaches differ?
Well, usually startups don't have in-house legal. And so which is like what I love to do, because I, you know, as much as I can't draw or paint or do anything like that, I love to be a part of the creative process as far as like getting in the ground and at least advising. And then you get to see a really cool product at the end of the day. And you're like, you know, I didn't really make it, but like I was part of it, and that's
sure. Yeah.
The global, you know, working with global brands is they bring you in for a very, very specific issue, whether it's, you know, litigation, we're going to, you know, as outside counsel, we're going to defend, or like, you know, we are swamped. Can you do these, you know, deals for us? You know, you're working with their in-house counsel, on those. You know, I think everybody thinks that they're these major, massive global companies and brands, that they've got huge legal teams. They do not. They are so leanly staffed. You know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the teams in-house, because they have a ton on their plate, and they're constantly learning. Like, they're given different portfolios, different jurisdictions. You know, it's like, here, okay, you're going to run Latin America, like, go figure it out, right?
That's
so
crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect. So, you know, you try to be a resource for them, and just, you know, reminder, like if something comes across your desk and you're like, hey, I think you should, you know, take a look at this, or this law's coming out of the EU, FYI. And you just try to be, you know, a good partner.
Yeah. How do you stay on top of all that? Like the laws that are.
I read a lot. Yeah, I read a lot. I've got my things that I get, you know, every morning. You know, and I just try to really, you know, the algos are helpful. So
yeah.
But really just try to stay on top of it.
So what's the difference between being like a general counsel and the way you think to being like outside counsel?
I think it's the same thing, right? Okay. I think that I think a good outside counsel should think like a general counsel. Nothing drives me when as outside counsel, especially at a big law firm, where I get a bill back and I am looking through the descriptions of what people are doing. And I was like, I've literally gone back and said, if you were in-house counsel, if you were the general counsel of this company, would you want to see this? Like, you really have to put yourself in the position of, you know, of being a good business partner. Like, this is a business. And if you want to have clients you have to understand that they are running a business. And so like when you come back with like BS, like with these descriptions and you expect them to pay for that, like, yeah. So I think that you need to come at it as being a good partner. And that has to be like, you have to have a business mindset and a commercial mindset.
I was just going to ask, what skills does it take to do that? So you said business mindset, commercial.
Yeah, put yourself in the shoes of what your client needs, right? I mean, like, what are their pain points? Like, how do you make, when I hire an associate, it's like, how are you going to make my life easier? I think that way for like my clients, like, how can I make your life easier? How can I take this, and it's not just for billing purposes, but it's to really establish a long-term partnership with your client.
Right. So you currently serve as GC for, can I say it, FitMatch?
FitMatch. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that. Like, what excites you about working in-house, with a tech-forward company in the fashion space? Like, tell us a little bit about it.
So it's really exciting because I think the technology is why, like, and I've worked with this company as outside counsel for a long time, and so I've gone through iterations, of what it was. Like, it was strictly, at some point retail, be like made to measure kind of thing, and then that was hard to scale. And then we realized that there's like technology there, and then we had patents on fit technology, which were just superior to everything else that was out on the market. So you can go in and essentially you get scanned and you have like, what is your fit twin? Because sizing across all brands is very, 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 very different. And so you can't really go by number, you have to go by fit. And so what that technology does is, at least in the retail sector, is able to match that fit. Also, we can create certain avatars. Anyway, we've then taken the technology into the sports space and digital health, because what we've realized from the technology is that we can also get quite a few anthropometric measurements that are really useful in sports and digital health for tracking how we can scan a young soccer player and basically get a good understanding as to when he's going to have his growth spurt, or he or she is going to have a growth spurt. Yeah.
Easy.
So for like young athletes and for like, especially in soccer and baseball, those metrics and those numbers are key, because when you're talking about like early developers versus late developers, they might be the same age, same height, same whatever, but one may have matured early. Like, don't count out the one that's a late developer, because he might be your next,
Like, how young are we talking?
Judge. What?
How young are we talking?
I mean, they start like what, U9 for soccer.
Okay.
Right. So as GC, I'm like, okay, now, the one thing, and we have a chief privacy officer, thank God, at the company, because privacy and security is paramount. Like that is, and and we have, we've done so much to make sure that all of that information is secure and private, and there's a whole lot of back end things, functionality, so it doesn't go anywhere and everything's deleted.
That's wild. So what sports is that for? Is it just like
it's everything? So we're working with the Dodgers, we're working with MLS, we're doing all sorts of, so some of the specific teams, baseball, football, basketball, soccer, hockey. I think that's it right now.
That's
yeah.
There you go. Like, you're sort of working in like sports.
So yeah. So now I'm back to
You're back in sports, and then when one of these kids goes on to, play MLS, like whatever it is, like you can be their agent, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
If there's no conflict of interest, I don't
exactly.
know. All right. So you're the co-founder of, help me with the pronunciation.
Entra. Yeah.
Brand Masterclass. So like, what inspired you to build this specifically for personal branding for attorneys?
Because I think we suck at it. You don't suck at it. You are the exception, right? Like
Me?
you.
Oh, not me. You're not talking about me.
No. You're really good at it. But most lawyers are not good at marketing. Particularly, I think women have a hard time with self-promotion. I think a lot of people have a hard time with self-promotion because it feels a little icky and gratuitous, and it just feels like I'm bragging about whatever.
People don't mind, believe me. They don't mind. But no, but I just, so I like this. Let me just, before you tell me more about it, like how long is the class or the master class, and like who's it for? Is it still running? How often do you do it? Give me some
metrics. You want some metrics?
Yeah.
All right. So it is 1 hour a week for 8 weeks. We do a master class. We limit it to 20 people because, we found that it's, very interactive. And I think that, everybody sort of also like loves to help. So the communication and the camaraderie amongst the class, I think, and the cohort is great.
So it's 1 hour. Say it again.
1 hour a week for 8 weeks.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome. Okay. Go ahead.
And so we go through, what makes you unique. How are you communicating? And that's how to work with outside marketing, how to work if you're at a firm with internal marketing. We've worked with, we work with men, we work with women, we've had, people that are 25-year attorneys, 30-year attorneys, 1-year attorneys, 3-year attorneys, 8-year attorneys that are, looking to pivot into a different sector, or leaving a firm or want to do something different, or just want to refresh and
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
People
it really,
are probably how crowded are your classes? I mean, they're probably so happy to come to you.
yeah, I mean, like it just depends on the time of the year and how we're, whatever.
Do you do
like
logos and stuff like that, or like help them with like deciding like what kind of logo and that sort of thing? Is that part of it?
I mean,
like,
we
I know
can.
I know it's like very simplistic of me to ask, but about like a logo. But all right, so that's.
So, I mean, we can. So, I mean, it's really, and we've got a workbook and there's homework and we keep you accountable. I think that's what, so every day we go through like, okay, what have you done to sort of, move this ball along?
Give me an example of like something you do in the class.
So one of the things I think is really cool is that one of the assignments is to go out to, and you can do this, Benny, to 10 people and say, how would you, I'm doing this exercise, whatever, like, how would you describe me? And it is, I mean,
I'm not doing it.
first of all, I know that's another, I was like, I'm never doing that. But I will tell you, one of my mentors who we were just talking and he said, I wish that you could see you the way that I see you. Because we are so hypercritical of ourselves. We're not doing enough. We're not doing, like, it's always, we got to do, what's next? And we're never really like taking a breath and a beat and really looking at like our accomplishments or what we've done or what we've created, right? You said it to me, you're like, you're an icon. I'm like, I don't see myself that way. I see like you're Betty, you're an icon. Like you're everywhere. Like it's amazing.
Talk about that later.
But, like I don't, right. So you go to 10 people, you have them give feedback on like how, and it's amazing. It also helps you sort of like understand who you are and what you're giving off, right? And so how do I harness that? How do I communicate that? This is what is my unique value prop. And it's also nice because like, it's nice to read like what these people think about you. It's a feel good moment.
Does that like, how does that help you? Does it help you like kind of figure out like your brand and like how people see you, and then you can kind of push that outwards into like how you represent yourself?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So what are like sort of the words that keep coming up, or how do you do it? Or like, and sometimes it's just like, it's you need this hype guy, like that's giving you all this like amazing feedback that can sort of like, move you forward, or like, this is like, yes, I am this person.
Does anybody come back
like harness that energy?
Does anybody come back and be like, this guy said I was an asshole? This guy said
that does not happen. I would hope that like the 10 people that you would ask, you at least hope they like you.
No, I know. That's cool. I like that. I think having a master class with you would be, that's fantastic. So I'm glad you're doing that. Do you enjoy like
love it?
having these classes? And it's virtual and open to like any lawyer, like anywhere?
It's virtual. It's open. I think it's really important. And my friend Heather came to me with this years ago, and I was like, I don't have the time or the bandwidth or whatever. And like, I was like, what? Like, nah. And she's like, I'm telling you, like, we need to do this. And so, I think the timing is right. Look, I think that particularly for young lawyers and lawyers that are coming out of law school, AI is definitely an issue, right? Benny, you and I have been practicing law a long time. We've seen some stuff like we know, look, we know when the AI output is wrong on legal issues. We know enough to guide our clients, and we know our clients' risk profile and judgment. We've got all this judgment that we've built up from seeing a whole lot of stuff in, 20 plus years, right?
Right.
These kids don't have that, right? They're not going to have that. It's going to be, AI is going to replace them because it is doing the work that you and I did as young lawyers, getting into the weeds and doing the research and the doc review and the due diligence, and all of that stuff can now be automated. So there's going to, all of those parking spots at law firms, all the big, and I saw it in big, where we had 15 summer associates, now only 3. So the opportunities are shrinking. So there's going to be a whole host of and the numbers of kids in law school is increased by 30%. So you're going to have a whole lot of kids coming out, not even knowing who they are or where to start or how they're going to, do this, and how are they going to market themselves. So I think that,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so I think that this is also a helpful exercise for them, and to also feed off of everybody else's experience in the cohort, to help them build their brand and their practice and help them succeed.
Do you find a lot of your students coming to do your class?
No, because I don't pitch it to them. I mean, I should. I should.
I think you should pitch it more. I think this is 1 hour a week for 8 weeks. I mean, I think that's, and to learn, do some exercises, learn from you and like that. I think that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, the sales, look, I mean, it's not, it's not free, but it's like, it's an investment. I mean, it's an investment in yourself, right? Like, so I think that it's important. I think I think it's actually mission critical at this point because of AI and everything that I've said. But it's hard to.
How do you like being a professor, by the way?
I love it. So it was one of the things that, I was going to go to law school, is like teach, or, I was like, oh, I'd be an awful teacher. Never wanted to teach. I thought I would be terrible. And so when I was approached, I think I've been teaching like 8 years now. When I was approached, and so 8 years ago, I'm like in the throes of, being a partner, little kids, all the things.
Yeah.
And I was like, and UM was like, we really wanted you to teach this class. And
it's amazing.
I was like, I don't, let me get back to you. And I went to one of my partners and I said, I just was approached with this, and he's like, you have to do it. And I was like, are you out of your mind? And he's like, you have to do it. He goes, it's your corner.
And you
like,
wanted to. Come on, Dan.
I don't know that I wanted to, because it's a lot of work, but it was one of those, like, it's your corner. They asked you first, and then they're going to ask somebody else. So like, you need to do it. So, and I will tell you, it was the best thing I ever did.
So what's the name of the course?
It's fashion law. That's on our fashion law.
You probably have a waiting list out the door.
I do. So I've got like 100 something students.
Yeah.
I started my first class with 30. I've now have, 100. I love it so much because those kids give me so much energy. They're so engaged. They're so smart. Like, they are really, and look, it's fashion law. We're not saving. That's what I said. I'm like, this class is not like this. This should be enjoyable. It's not that stressful. It's not that serious. We're not curing cancer.
Third year, you said, or second?
It's open to 2 Ls, 3 Ls, and LLM students. Damn. It's part of their LLM program for the entertainment, arts, and sports law section.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, Miami is such a, for me, actually, my uncle went to Miami Law, like way back in the day. I had him on my podcast. He's a lawyer in South Florida, but Yeah, I mean that's incredible. I mean, you probably feel a lot of like passion when you're up there. Like you get to talk to these kids about like, oh, look, this. I actually kind of would be interested to see like what your syllabus looks like, or like what book do you use? Do you use a book, textbook?
I do. I have 2 books. I have one. I don't know what it would be. It's like the Business of Fashion or Business of Law and Fashion or something like that. In fact, the guy who wrote it asked me. He did another edition, and he asked me for a quote, and I was like, oh. Like,
yeah,
I got like that was like, I was like, okay, like I have now
icon. Like
I was just like, I've hit the pinnacle of like everything right now. So I was like, yeah, when I saw that, he's at Gibson Dunn, really wonderful man, and wrote, I think this is the third version. So I used that book, and which is excellent, and Sneaker Law.
Okay.
Which dear friends of mine wrote that book. We're on the second.
I met the Sneaker Law guy like 2 years ago in Manhattan at our mutual friends event.
Kenneth's and yeah.
I actually did a little like a 10-second like I asked him a question, like a little clip somewhere around there. But yeah, that was cool. It's really interesting stuff.
So cool. And I use it. Like I use that book. You know, I've done a ton of sneaker deals. And I
really.
Yeah, and it is one, it's a beautiful book. It's very thoughtful. It has cool stuff. I've done presentations for like agencies and sort of like when using some of the cases that they like it's a good book, and I think that everybody should read it, and it's beautiful, and I think they sell it in Kith. Like it's sort of iconic.
Kith, what's that?
Kith, the like streetwear. Cool. Or New York, Paris, Miami.
I'm not really with it, like with that stuff. So, could you tell the difference between like fake and real Nikes? Like just by looking at
Nike's probably not. I could do watches pretty well and jewelry.
Yeah.
And bags. I could do bags. Like I could spot it.
Bags. Yeah, bags. That's super interesting. I feel like I could talk longer, but let me know. Do you have anything you like we left out or that you'd like to share with the Lawyer Stories community?
No, I mean, I think we've talked about so much. Yeah. I will say, like, if you're gonna like, one of the things is if you could say what you would say to your younger self or law student, because I say this to my class all the time, like every year, because they are so wrapped around the axle of like getting a job and now I think it's even more, like I said, with AI, I think it's even more stressful.
Yeah.
Like, take a breath. Whatever is meant to be, where you're going to start is very likely not where you're going to end up.
Yep.
And it's all going to work out the way that it's supposed to be. And if, you're not tethered or locked into anything, you can always make a move and never stay somewhere where it's a toxic environment, because that is super unhealthy.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's great advice. I can see why you're a successful professor. Congrats on like all your success. It's like I had a lot more too, but we have a thing at 8. Like I don't even know what's gonna happen with that. It's supposed to be a round table tonight, but I really appreciate you coming on and like sharing your story and telling us everything, and like what maybe one day there'll be a part 2.
I would love that. That would be fantastic. I am so psyched for your event. I'm so excited for you to see you again in person, and
yeah, that's so nice.
So much fun. Yeah. So, and anything that I can do, always never hesitate to ask.
Thank you. Can you stay right there for a minute? And then we'll sign off. Thank you, Danielle Garno. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.